Dillian the Body Snatcher right here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
Now, I know that most of you guys know exactly what's going on and you're fully clued up. And you're probably looking at a lot of the comments, as I have been as well, and just laughing or shaking your head. Because there are fanboys and then there are extreme fanboys. And I have to ask a question for some people. Are you a boxing fan, a British boxing fan, or are you an Eddie Hearn fan? Okay. Now, for me, let me start off. I believe that Eddie Hearn is the best promoter on the planet. I really do. He puts on the best shows. But that doesn't mean he's perfect. That doesn't mean he can't be criticised. That doesn't mean that once in a while Frank Warren will put on a show that's better than Eddie Hearn. Of course it can. You know, all that kind of thing can happen. Okay, but Eddie Hearn has resurrected British boxing, but not on his own. He hasn't done this. So let's get into some realities of it. As I said, a lot of you guys will already know this, and you'll probably find it quite funny at some of the comments that I've been seeing and you guys have been seeing. Eddie Hearn was, you see, he didn't start off with nothing and then kind of grow into and then work his way into being a promoter. Okay, he was given this opportunity. Okay, the door was wide open, and it was all the hard work was done before him by his own dad, Barry Hearn. Okay, and he got a Sky Sports contract for Matchroom Boxing on the back of Barry Hearn. Okay, now don't get me wrong, Eddie Hearn had to have something about him. He couldn't just come in and be wooden and boring, not at all. Although to start with, he kind of was, wasn't he? But it was Barry Hearn that did all that, and Eddie Hearn has grabbed the bull by the horn and dragged it through to the 21st century. Okay, so he's done exceptional, and for me, that's what makes him the best promoter around. But he didn't work hard at all this. He has worked hard, of course he has, but he was gifted the opportunity to start with. So that's the reality of it. And some of the comments that, as I said, I know many of us are looking at, shaking your head, which is the Dillian Whyte potentially going to ESPN. As I said in the previous video, it's not confirmed. It's just rumours online at the minute. Okay, that Dillian Whyte could be signing with Bob Arum, Top Rank, for his fights to be on ESPN. And people are jumping the gun like Dillian Whyte has just taken a slash in their cereal. You know, I mean, first of all, this doesn't mean he's leaving Eddie Hearn. Okay? It doesn't mean it at all. He could still be fighting on Sky Sports. He could still be fighting at the O2 Arena with Eddie Hearn as his promoter. It's just that his fights are aired on ESPN. Okay? Again, if you don't like that one, then maybe you also have to be critical of Anthony Joshua. Because Anthony Joshua is not signed to DAZN either. Okay? Anthony Joshua chooses where his fights are aired. Whether he chooses DAZN, whether he chooses ESPN, Showtime, whatever, it makes no difference. Anthony Joshua chooses, not Eddie Hearn. Okay, so Anthony Joshua doesn't have a deal with DAZN either. And it seems that a lot of people are criticising Dillian Whyte, first of all, before even knowing any of the details, but second of all, because he's not going to be signed with DAZN. Without any kind of given thought, well, maybe ESPN offered him a better deal than DAZN. Maybe DAZN didn't even offer him a deal. Maybe he's not going to leave Eddie Hearn. Maybe he is. Who knows? But does it really matter? He's still a British fighter. He's still going to be putting on shows for you. Okay? And again, let's look at it the other way around. So if he does sign with ESPN, and if he does have some fights in America, well, isn't that good for him? From a career perspective, isn't that good for him? But you see, some people say that he should sign with DAZN and he should definitely stay with Eddie Hearn because look at what Eddie Hearn's done for him. Eddie Hearn has made Dillian Whyte a pay-per-view superstar. I suppose you think Eddie Hearn made Joshua a pay-per-view superstar too. Yeah? Think about it. Who really made Joshua a pay-per-view star? Who made Dillian Whyte a pay-per-view as well? Do you really believe it's Eddie Hearn? Do you honestly believe that? Do you really believe that Eddie Hearn chooses what is pay-per-view and what isn't? No, not at all. So again, reality check for those who believe that's what it is. So we can compare it with Joshua and Dillian Whyte. Who made these guys pay-per-view? Every single person listening to this video right now, plus millions more, made these guys pay-per-view, not Eddie Hearn. Because you guys bought into the hype of Dillian Whyte and Anthony Joshua. Why? Because Dillian Whyte and Anthony Joshua are not only doing it in the ring, but they're doing it outside the ring as well. With their activities outside the ring, some of their interviews, some of their antics. Anthony Joshua's playing the good guy. Dillian Whyte's playing the bad guy. People like that. So therefore, you made him a pay-per-view star. Dillian Whyte made Dillian Whyte a pay-per-view star. Anthony Joshua made Anthony Joshua a pay-per-view star. Not Eddie Hearn. In addition to that, Sky Sports made these guys pay-per-view. Not Eddie Hearn. Sky Sports chooses whether or not these fights are going to be on pay-per-view. Eddie Hearn doesn't decide this. Not at all. Eddie Hearn presents opportunities to fighters, okay? He will give them a rundown of what potential opponents it is that they can fight. Dillian Whyte, as an example, can say, well, I don't want to fight him, don't want to fight him, don't want to fight him, I want to fight him. That's my decision. So Eddie Hearn doesn't choose who it is that Eddie Hearn doesn't choose who it is that Dillian Whyte fights. Dillian Whyte does. So therefore, Dillian Whyte has made himself a pay-per-view. Sky Sports has made himself a pay-per-view, has made him a pay-per-view. You have made him a pay-per-view, not Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn is just a mouthpiece. He's a promoter. He's not a matchmaker. He's not a manager. He's a promoter. He's the mouthpiece. He's the one who convinces you to buy the tickets and the pay-per-view. That's his job. So no, it wasn't. Do you really think that Anthony Joshua would not be pay-per-view if he was with Frank Warren? Or had he signed with any other promoter on the planet? Do you not think that he would have been pay-per-view anyway? And Dillian Whyte as well. Bear in mind, Dillian Whyte's only had, 7 or 8 fights with Matchroom. And for a long time, you and me were criticising Eddie Hearn on his handling of Dillian Whyte because he kept getting fights with 2-3 weeks notice. Eddie Hearn convinced him to take a fight in America on the Terence Crawford, Julius Ndongo undisputed undercard against Malcolm Tan when the thing wasn't even on TV. So Eddie Hearn hasn't always presented the best opportunities for Dillian Whyte. If he had, then Dillian Whyte would be at least mandatory right now for the WBC. Why is he still not mandatory? Again, was I not critical of the fact that he was fighting Derek Chisora last time out? When he's already fought Derek Chisora and already beaten him? A lot of you guys will remember my interview with Eddie Hearn when I said to him about it. What about Dominic Brazil? Why? Because Dominic Brazil was a mandatory. Make Dillian Whyte versus Dominic Brazil, then Dillian Whyte would become the mandatory. Okay? Him fighting Derek Chisora did nothing outside making him a lot of money. Ultimately, it's prize fighting, and I'm glad that he did it in that aspect because he earned a lot of money out of it. But Eddie Hearn would have said to Dillian Whyte, okay, so potentially Luis Ortiz, potentially Derek Chisora, or potentially Dominic Brazil. Which fight do you want? I can guarantee you, in fact, I'll tell you, that Dillian Whyte wanted Dominic Brazil. So what do you think Eddie Hearn did with this? Eddie Hearn would have contacted Dominic Brazil, or at least pretended to, made him a pretty crap offer, so Dominic Brazil says no, and then he probably goes back to Dillian Whyte and say, yeah, Dominic Brazil's not interested, mate. But Derek Chisora, on the other hand, why? Because Eddie Hearn wanted Derek Chisora. So for me, I think there's some kind of trust barrier has broken down there, where because Eddie Hearn was so set on Derek Chisora and Dillian Whyte Part 2, because of both his fighters at the time, kind of backfired on him in some ways because Derek Chisora left him and went with David Haye. But he was so desperate for that fight because it makes him more money. But from a career point, he should have went Dominic Brazil. Eddie Hearn should have made more of an effort with Dominic Brazil, because right now, the situation that would be in, Deontay Wilder versus Dillian Whyte, there's a very good chance that fight would have been ordered next. But Eddie Hearn wanted Derek Chisora. You guys were saying this. You all remember it. You can't just change it now. I mean, don't forget, again, with Anthony Joshua, he chooses who it is that he fights. But ultimately, Eddie Hearn, if he really, really wanted one fighter, all he's got to do is not make much of an effort with the other ones. Now, I'm not saying that Eddie Hearn would have done that, or he has done that. I don't know what he's done. But ultimately, no, Eddie Hearn did not make Dillian Whyte pay-per-view. Dillian Whyte made Dillian Whyte pay-per-view. You made Dillian Whyte pay-per-view. Sky Sports made Dillian Whyte pay-per-view. And as I said, he may still be signed with Eddie Hearn. He may still be fighting on Sky Sports. He may still be fighting at the O2 Arena. Just that his fights are shown on ESPN. Why shouldn't he? It's free money. If ESPN are offering more money than DAZN messed him about for the Derek Chisora rematch. A lot of you guys don't know about that one. I didn't really go into depth on it. But I know for a fact that DAZN messed him about, because if you guys remember originally, when these guys were, had their press conference, DAZN was on the poster. But DAZN were messing about with the money. So Dillian Whyte went, you know what, screw you. I'm going to allow Showtime to air my fight. So he has to do what's best for his career. Every fighter does. As I said, Amir Khan, he's not fighting on DAZN next. He's fighting on ESPN against Terence Crawford. Anthony Crolla is fighting on ESPN, not DAZN, against Lomachenko. Do you see? Anyway, as I said, I know most of you guys already knew this, but there seems to be some real extreme Eddie Hearn fans. And hopefully now you kind of realise Eddie Hearn does not make pay-per-view fighters. Sky Sports do it. The fighter does it with his actions in the ring and outside the ring. And more importantly, you guys make these people pay-per-view. If Eddie Hearn said to Sky Sports, right, yeah, Dave Allen versus Lucas Brown, pay-per-view, we're going to put on pay-per-view, Sky Sports will go, jog on. But even if they agree to it, you guys are ultimately going to be the ones who decided whether or not Dave Allen and Lucas Brown is a pay-per-view or not, because you will buy it or you won't. Do you see where I'm coming from? Anyway, so if you're going to have a go at Dillian Whyte for potentially signing with ESPN, then you need to have a go at Anthony Joshua for not signing a contract with DAZN. Don't you? Drop your thoughts below. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you all on the next one.